Apex Legends, the Battle Royale of the future, the spiritual successor and sequel to the Titanfall series. This game is complicated and layered. My job here is to help break down the complications and teach you the basics, and letting you figure it out from there. So, strap on your jetpacks, because we're dropping hot, fellas. Welcome to Apex Kindergarten. Alright, here's lesson 2, and on a pretty reasonable schedule too. See what happens when I make a content on a game I'm genuinely passionate about? Don't worry, I will finish Siege Kindergarten at some point. I don't know when though. Anyway, changing the subject, we love segues here, don't we? Today's lesson is about the Skirmisher class of Legends. Now, what does that mean exactly? What is a Skirmisher? And what do they do? A Skirmisher, my dear student, is a legend based around taking fights as quickly and efficiently as possible. Get in, get the kill, get out. They all have mobility of some sort, and most of them also have help with rotating through the map, the only exception being Revenant, as all of his mobility is selfish. Now, as all of the legend archetypes in this game do, they have a class passive, and there is no doubt that it is the worst one in the game. It feels like Respawn didn't really know what to do with this class, and it shows. The Skirmisher passive is to scan and reveal the most valuable item in a care package. As usual, all of this information is accurate as of Season 21. So let's get this lesson started, shall we? Up first in the Skirmisher category is Pathfinder, the Forward Scout, and he is one of the 6 free legends you get upon installing the game for the first time. As such, he will probably be one of the go-tos for players interested in the Skirmisher class. What is this happy robot's deal, and what does he do? Well, his passive is called Insider's Knowledge. Basically, what it does whenever you scan a care package with your Skirmisher passive is it gives you 50% ultimate charge and a permanent 15-second cooldown reduction on your ultimate ability. His tactical ability, Grappling Hook, throws a grappling hook that will attach to the first solid object it hits, including players and zip lines, and pull you towards it. The maximum length of the grappling hook is 21 meters. There's a circle on Pathfinder's crosshair that turns blue to indicate when the surface you're pointing at is within grapple range. The grappling hook can also attach to enemy players, pulling the two of you together, like I said earlier. The cooldown's length scales based on the distance Pathfinder travels, with more emphasis placed on horizontal movement instead of vertical. It stops increasing when Pathfinder's velocity returns to weapon sprinting speed or after 5 seconds, whichever comes first. The cooldown scales from 10 seconds to 30 seconds at its maximum. And finally, his ultimate, which is called Zipline Gun. It creates a zipline between your current location and a target location, which you, your teammates, and enemies can use to move quickly between both points. The other end of the zipline can be attached to most surfaces, allowing them to lead to places that players can't stand. They cannot be placed out of bounds, though. The maximum length of the zipline is about 200 meters, and players on this zipline move 66% faster than on a standard zipline. Word of advice, the zipline is a straight line. Do not take it straight into a fight. If you are noticed, you will be an easy target. The base cooldown before passive reduction is 3 minutes. His level 2 perks are called Field Research, which allows him to access survey beacons, and Ringmaster, which allows him to access ring consoles. Both of these perks stack with his passive, so it doesn't matter which one you grab, his passive applies to both. His level 3 perks are called Down and Away, which refunds his tactical cooldown upon getting a knock, and Zipline Zen, which energizes the zipline from his zipline gun, which grants those riding it a 25% damage reduction. Pathfinder is very fun, but as a legend he has a very high skill floor, which makes him difficult to get into. If you don't mind failing a lot as you learn the intricacies of his kit, you will find him a very versatile legend.
Pain, death, nothing phases me.
Wraith is another of the 6 free legends. The difference between her and Pathy is that she is infinitely easier, meaning she has less of a learning curve, and she is also conceptually way more interesting than Pathfinder, so she has a higher chance of hooking the new players. Now, what are her secrets? Her passive, Voices from the Void, makes it so when a specific trigger happens, someone aiming at you, traps nearby, lots of people died in the immediate vicinity, etc., an alternate version of Wraith will warn you through a voice line. It can be pretty buggy and may not always proc, but it is a valuable tool for avoiding ambushes and third parties if the passive does function. Which they have patched a lot recently, to be fair, and it's getting a lot better, but it's still not always at 100%. Her tactical is called Into the Void, and it allows her to become functionally invisible and immaterial. It has a 1.25 second windup, and upon activation, Wraith enters the Void for 4 seconds. While in the Void, the screen will turn grayscale. The player becomes invulnerable and will gain a 30% speed boost. You'll be able to see enemies highlighted in red. Other players can see a wispy blue trail showing where the player is going while in the Void. While in the Void, Wraith is unable to interact with some objects in the world, including doors and objects placed by abilities, but can use zip lines. It has a cooldown of 26 seconds. Her ultimate, Dimensional Rift, lets her link 2 locations together with a portal that she creates. It lasts for 45 seconds, and you can use your tactical ability while casting her ult. It completely removes the 1 second windup and just has the 0.25 second cast animation. Wraith places one end of the portal, where she activates the ability, then runs to another location and places the other end. Players can then pass through the portal to take that same path through the Void at 5 times the speed they would otherwise. It can be used in either direction. Wraith can run roughly 152 meters before placing the other end of the portal. The rift energy is shown on the top of the HUD upon activation, and does not drain while standing still. Wraith gets a 22% initial speed boost, then as further away Wraith goes, the speed boost increases to 39%, then up to 57% at maximum velocity. While running to place the other end, Wraith cannot use any weapons, items, or map features. Players taking the portal are invulnerable and leave a faint blue trail, much like Wraith while using Into the Void. Portals will disappear after 4.5 to 6 seconds if both ends are outside the ring. It is best to use this ability creatively, for flanking, pushing, rotating, rescuing down teammates, etc. The more imaginative you can be with this ability, the better usage you'll get out of it. It has a cooldown of 3 minutes. Her level 2 perks are called Sixth Sense, which adds another effect to her passive, which tells her when a squad is entering an area of 50 or so meters. The range has never been specified, which is really annoying, but whatever. Her Ultimate Cooldown Plus, which removes 60 seconds off of her ult cooldown. Her level 3 perks are called Fast Phase, which makes the wind-up on her tactical 20% faster, and Tactical Cooldown, which removes 5 seconds off of her tactical ability cooldown. Wraith is a legend that requires a lot of creativity to properly utilize. You also have to be comfortable with getting your shit pushed in sometimes. She's designed to be overly aggressive, and with that design, it leads to a lot of unfortunate scenarios.
They say death catches up to everyone. He can certainly try.
Up next is Mr. Crack Cocaine himself, your friendly neighborhood speed demon. Apex's resident meth head if you feel so inclined. Octane. He is probably the easiest legend in the game, but he is also the most fun. What about our local Daredevil makes him such a blast, though? Well, first, let's start with his passive, Swift Mend. It's a very simple passive. After avoiding damage for 6 seconds, you heal 1 HP per second. It obviously doesn't apply to shield health, just health. Now, why does he have this ability exactly? Well, that's because of his tactical ability, Stim, which for the cost of 20 health, grants you a 30% movement speed buff, 40% buff while sprinting. It also completely removes any slows that enemy legends apply on you if you pop it after you've been hit by it, and reduces the effect if you activate it before the status condition is applied. Now, you might hear that it takes 20 health as a cost and be worried about a couple things. A, dying, and B, the cooldown. Well, good news for both of them. You cannot die to stimming. It will always leave you at 1 HP. And there is no cooldown. Well, there is, but it's 1 second, so it's basically negligible. His ultimate ability, Launch Pad, allows him to throw down a pad that if you run into it sends you flying through the air, and you can double jump to alter your trajectory. There's not really a lot to say about his ultimate, it's very self-explanatory. A little fun trivia though, you can bounce grenades and a lot of deployables off of it, including other jump pads, and if you punch it, you will fly straight up. It has a cooldown of 1 minute and 30 seconds. His level 2 perks are called Thick Skin, which takes 5 damage off of stim, and Mad Hops, which gives you another charge of launch pad so you can have 2 ultimates. His level 3 perks are called Thick Skin, which does the same thing as above, and yes, it does stack with itself, so you can have 10 health off of stim. So you can only take 10 damage with your stim. And Airborne Agility, which allows you to change directions mid-air with your launch pad's double jump. Octane is a lot like Wraith in the fact that he's an aggressive character. And much like Wraith, be prepared to eat dirt. A lot.
Can't believe I'm standing still. You're lucky I like you.
Revenant, the edgy murder robot, the famed assassin, and the most selfish legend in the entire game. Is the only legend in the entire game whose abilities do not provide anything for anyone other than himself. His passive, Assassin's Instinct, has 2 effects. The first is that he crouch walks as fast as his base walking speed and can climb 6 times higher than any other legend, and he maneuvers better while climbing. The second is that when an enemy is low health, they are revealed to rev even if they run behind a wall or other obstruction. His tactical ability is called Shadow Pounce, and it allows him to launch 20 meters, or 55 if you fully charge it, which takes 3 seconds. That's literally all it does. Neat trick though, if you look at the ground before you jump, you gain more horizontal movement and go faster and further. It has a cooldown of 25 seconds. His ultimate though is the feared and revered Forged Shadows. Upon activation, you gain 75 overhealth for 25 seconds. Any knock you get or assist in while in your ult will increase the time by 5 seconds, but it cannot exceed the maximum of 25, and fully refresh your overhealth. If your overhealth is depleted, it will eventually begin to slowly refill if you don't take damage. Word of warning, it does make your hitbox a bit larger to compensate for the extra health. It is a cooldown of 3 minutes. His level 2 perks are called Ultimate Cooldown, which decreases the cooldown of Forged Shadows by 30 seconds, and a Murder Machine, which reveals nearby squads in a radius of 75 meters after getting a squad wipe. His level 3 perks are called Tactical Cooldown, which decreases the cooldown of Shadow Pounce by 5 seconds, and Grim Leaper, which refunds his tactical upon knocking an enemy. Like I said at the beginning of his section, Rev is the most selfish legend in the entire game. He is designed for the solo fragger mindset. So if that's your style, he's the first legend you should look into getting.
Careful on for any survivors. So, just me and Newt then?
Here we go. Everyone's favorite punching bag, Horizon. I don't mean that in the case of her being bad and people like to pick on her for that. She's actually really strong and people don't like dealing with her, is what I mean. But what about her makes her so strong? Well, I'll tell you. Her passive, Spacewalk, allows her to experience no fall stun from long falls, and allows her to maneuver better while midair. You might be like, but wait, that second part sounds useless, and normally I'd agree with you if it weren't for this. Gravity Lift. Her tactical ability reverses the flow of gravity, lifting players upward and boosting them outward when they exit. She throws a device which creates a 30-meter cylinder above it. It stays active for 10 seconds. Players that enter the cylinder are lifted upwards. Players inside the lift can move horizontally. Exiting boosts the player upward and outwards. Players that reach the top will hover there for half a second, then be ejected. It is a useful tool for taking high ground, blocking off entry to enemies, and quick resets. Word of advice when going up a grab lift, never stay still. Constantly stray fall on it. Combined with Horizon's passive, it is an invaluable tool. It has a cooldown of 25 seconds. Her ultimate ability is called Black Hole, and she throws her trusty robot sidekick Newt, and 2 seconds after landing, players in a 10-meter radius are pulled towards the device. It lasts 12 seconds and has 175 HP and can be destroyed to cancel the pull, even by teammates, and it takes half damage from explosives. Enemies behind Newt are highlighted. Due to the fact that it takes decreased damage from explosions, you should try and combine her role with ordnance and other things like that. It has a cooldown of 3.5 minutes. Her level 2 perks are called Battery Collection, which allows her to see the number of shield batteries on death boxes, and Big Bang, which allows her to see grenades through walls in a short range. Her level 3 perks are called Tactical Cooldown, which reduces the cooldown of Grab Lift by 5 seconds, and Ultimate Cooldown, which reduces the cooldown on Newt by 30 seconds. Her perks are very underwhelming, but if they gave her anything better than what she currently has, she would be genuinely oppressive. And Horizon is another solo frag legend, like Rev, but unlike Rev, she can actually provide a lot of good utility to her team as well.
The skies belong to me.
If Seer was the fallen king, that would make Valkyrie the fallen queen. Once the best legend in the game, and on literally every team in professional play, she has truly fallen from glory. But the thing is, right, she's still technically viable, just significantly worse than she used to be, and with the introduction of evac towers as a survival item, there's really no reason to run her anymore. But she's still pretty good in the right hands, so don't let this dissuade you. She just requires a bit more practice before you figure her out compared to how she used to be. Her passive is VTOL jets. While in the air, press jump again to engage VTOL jets, and using the jets consumes fuel on a bar, which was on the right side of your screen. Activating the VTOL jets consumes about 15% of the total fuel, and it will begin to refill after 8 seconds of the jet's last usage. Fully refueling from empty takes about 10 seconds. While using the jets, Valkyrie cannot use any weapons except for her missile swarm. Once the jets are released, there is a 1 second delay where a hand animation will be played before she can use her weapons. Additionally, while skydiving, whether on deploying from the dropship using her ultimate or using a jump tower or an evac tower, she marks any enemies within a direct line of sight within 250 meters of her. It has special markers for kill leader and champion. Her tactical is called Missile Swarm, and basically it launches 12 missiles in a 4x3 pattern, dealing damage and slowing enemies' movement for 2 seconds. If a legend gets hit, the first missile deals 25 damage, and every subsequent missile deals 3 damage, and the missiles explode in a 1.25 meter radius. It needs ample vertical clearance to use, meaning the player cannot use it on interior spaces with low ceilings. It has a cooldown of 30 seconds. Her ultimate ability, Skyward Dive, is a great rotation tool. Upon activation, she enters a 2-second charge up. Before she actually launches, her teammates can attach to her if they wish to, and then she can launch about 130 meters in the air. She requires vertical clearance for flight, and it doesn't have to be used as a rotation tool either. It can also be great for gathering intel because of her passive ability, and also can be an escape if timed properly. It has a cooldown of 3 minutes. Her level 2 perks are called Afterburners, which allows her to launch 15% higher with her Skyward Dive, and Aerial Expert, which gives her better handling when she's in the air with her jetpack. Her level 3 perks are called Full Coverage, which changes her missile swarm array from 4x3 to 3x5, and the other one is Full Tank, which gives her 25% more fuel in her jetpack and slightly increases the speed at which she gains fuel. Now, just because she isn't as good as she used to be, doesn't mean she's a throw pick. You just might have to fight an uphill battle if you want to do anything meaningful with her that you couldn't do with another legend or survival items. The fact of the matter is, she's good, but she's just outclassed by a survival item and a lot of other skirmishers and assault legends.
Think of your greatest fears. Now, add me to the list.
Alter, the newest legend. A victim of what I like to call the Jinx effect, or Harley Quinnification. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of what I say about her kit in this video is going to be different by the mid-season patch, because she really is quite strong. But with that aside, here is Alter. Her passive, Gift from the Rift, allows Alter to see death boxes through walls for up to 80 meters away. And you can reach inside a death box and grab one item or one stack of ammo from within from the same distance. It cannot be a shield core though. You can do this to any death box you find, but once you take an item from a death box, you cannot access that one again unless you manually interact with it. Void Passage is her tactical ability, and it allows her to create a set of 2 portals on either side of a surface, wall, or other object, creating a gate that allows you to pass through said obstacle. It has an activation time of 1 second before the gate opens, it lasts 15 seconds before closing, and the maximum depth of the gate is 20 meters. Travel through the gate is instantaneous regardless of depth. The player using the gate is transported to the void, becoming immune to all damage, and the player remains in the void for 1 second after exiting the gate. During this time, you cannot travel through the gate again, and can be seen only through void particles being displayed at your rough location. If the gate is placed on a ceiling or at the bottom of a sloped surface leaning at an angle greater than around 40 degrees, the bottom portal will create a string of void energy that you could interact with and ride up to the portal, much like a zip line. While traveling up the string, you are also transported to the void. It has a cooldown of 30 seconds. Her ultimate ability is called Void Nexus, and Alter creates a regroup point that her team can return to. She throws a device that she and her allies can interact with to teleport back to its location, even if they are knocked. It lasts 120 seconds and has a range of 200 meters in which you can activate the teleport action. Each player on Alter's team, including herself, can teleport to the Nexus only once per its lifetime. The teleport prompt needs to be held down for half a second before beginning activation. The teleport action takes 2.5 seconds, during which you activate a handheld device and are slowed down. Travel to the Nexus takes up to 6 seconds depending on the distance and terrain obstructing it. During the travel, the user is transported to the void. After initiating the teleport, you leave behind a residual rift. The rift opens after 6 seconds and can be taken by any player to follow the user's path to the Nexus, and lasts 10 seconds after opening up. After arriving at the Nexus, the user leaves the void instantly and has their weapon holstered. It has a cooldown of 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Her level 2 perks are called Ultimate Cooldown, which decreases the cooldown of Void Nexus by 30 seconds, and Void Vision, which reveals the current health of enemies after exiting any rift. Her level 3 perks are called Eternal Nexus, which increases the duration of her Void Nexus from 120 seconds to indefinite, or until you dismiss it or it is destroyed. And Tactical Cooldown Plus, which decreases the cooldown of Void Passage by 10 seconds. Alter is still pretty new, so I don't really have a lot of tips and tricks for how to play her. Honestly, just test stuff out, see what works, and do that. Be creative, think outside the box. I only really have one interaction that I think is interesting, that I think is worth sharing. If you shoot your tactical at cover that someone is healing behind, it will pull them through it if they move into it, which most people do strafe and move while they're healing. So you can use it as a proper confusion technique and then fry them with your team if you're coordinated enough. Alrighty then, there is all of the Skirmisher Legends. This video is a bit longer than the last one, but like not by that much, so it'd be like that. The roles aren't evenly distributed, so you know. As is normal, any questions feel free to ask in the comments below, and I have to remind you to keep it civil down there. I like to try and foster a good environment and make this a safe space for learning and growing, and asking questions if you need to, because you can't learn if you don't ask questions. If you're scared to ask questions, you're scared of learning. If you liked the video, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it. That's what the button is there for, after all. You can subscribe if you want to. It really doesn't bother me either way. I just do this for me as it is. But yeah, class dismissed.